Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar, Building the Business Case for AI-Powered QA in Salesforce Contact Centers. My name is Mackenzie Puddesy with SmartBrief. We're producing your webinar here today on behalf of Future B2B, and this session is brought to you by Leaptree AI, and we're excited to have them back in the house today. Now, manual QA programs typically review only a small fraction of customer interactions, making it difficult to identify coaching opportunities, compliance issues, and emerging operational risks before they impact the business. So today we'll explore how contact center leaders like yourselves can build a compelling business case for AI-powered QA within Salesforce. We're going to be discussing how to quantify the operational, financial, and customer experience benefits of evaluating more interactions, reducing manual effort, and gaining deeper visibility into agent and AI performance. As you can tell, we have a lot to cover today, and this is going to be an exciting conversation. So let's just go over a little bit of housekeeping, and then we'll get our speaker up here on stage. All right, so introductions are always in order. Again, my name is Mackenzie. I'm your moderator for the session. I've already seen quite a few of you popping up in the chat tab, but if you're just joining us, just getting settled, if you look in the upper right-hand side of your screen, you're going to see a chat interface and a few tabs there, the chat, the docs, the Q&A. So if you're just joining us, find that chat tab. I invite you to say a quick hi, hello, hola, bonjour. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Looks like we've got Seth from Colorado. We've got Sacramento, New Jersey, Pittsburgh, Illinois, Gatineau, Canada. We've got Cali in Pennsylvania again. We've got Texas in the house, Connecticut. We've got Spain, Utah, Colorado. Awesome. Great spread. Excited to see all of you here. As you are in the session today, we're always interested to know how the information is landing. So feel free to pipe in there in the chat. Give us your hot takes, your feedbacks, your comments, anything you like. We love to see it. And we do invite you to add to the conversation that we're in the chat. Now, the chat tab is also the perfect place to let us know if you have any technical issues during today's session. So if video, slides, audio, anything's not loading up, not syncing for you, let us know in the chat. We will be there to help. Deanna, our webinar coordinator, is here running things smoothly in the background and can always troubleshoot with you there. That said, a quick browser refresh usually does help with any issues, and try that as a first line of defense. A couple other things you can do to enhance your viewing experience. In the bottom right, there is a closed caption icon if you hover over your viewport, and you can put those on in a multitude of languages. We also do have a light mode if you're tuning in from mobile, so feel free to toggle that on at the bottom of your screen if you've got some travel, limited bandwidth, any of those issues there. We are going to be having time set aside here for a live Q&A segment today. One of the best things about these sessions is being able to pick the brain of experts in real time. So I invite you throughout this session to put all of your questions, not in the chat, but in the Q&A, and we'll do our best to cover as many as possible here on the session. Last thing to mention, in the Docs tab, we do have an ROI calculator from Leaptree. We'll get into that a little bit later, but check it out. This is basically going to help you calculate your CXQA savings, so you can estimate your potential time savings, as well as looking at factors like coverage increases and how that'll give you a greater impact. So again, check it out, play with that, but we're going to look at some examples here on the session as well. Last bit of fun, $250 Amazon gift card up for grabs here. That is going to be drawn at the end of the session. You do need to be live and present for the duration of this webinar to qualify for the prize. You also do need to meet the prize terms and conditions, which you'll find in the Docs tab there as well. And with that, I think we've covered it all. So please help me in welcoming back to the stage Neil Young, CEO of Leaptree. I've had the pleasure of doing a couple sessions, learning some different things from Neil over the last year here. So excited to have you back with us, Neil. And with that, I'll join you for Q&A, but I'm going to hand it over to you.
Yeah, great to connect again, Mackenzie. So today I'm going to talk about building the business case for AI-powered QA within Salesforce contact centers. This is coming up quite a lot as we're rolling out the tech with our existing customers and new clients. So I thought it would be a good topic for the webinar discussion today. But just for those that haven't come across us before, Leaptree AI, just to provide you with a brief overview of what we provide. We very much, we're an AI powered CX optimization platform, very much lead in with the quality management side of things. So if you think of quality assurance, providing quality scores back to your agents. We serve the contact centers predominantly, but we talk about CX quite a bit because sometimes we reach out beyond the contact center and it could be documents going back at the customers and so on and so forth. So we're very much around the CX umbrella. Other elements connected as like performance management and gamification and training development, very important. It's all within the Salesforce ecosystem, which now, as you know, includes Agentforce. And then, underneath the hood of our techs, fairly similar to Salesforce, is AWS. That's where our AI brains and infrastructure lives. So that's Leaptree. That's what we provide. That's a very high level technical overview as well. And we are supported by great brands within global brands such as Ziff Davis, Ahold Delhaize, GoDaddy, 3M, Circle, just to name a few. So we're working with incredible clients out there, enterprise grade, multinational, multi regional deployments. So that's Leaptree. So start talking about ROI, business case, and AI. When we think about these elements, recent report from McKinsey is talking about the state of AI. This go back to November 2025. From surveying their customers, their clients, 80%, more than 80% were achieving no meaningful impact on enterprise-wide earnings before interest and tax. So really, in layman's terms, where's there's customers are struggling, enterprise clients are struggling with ROI from AI projects and how they can make that tangible. So what were the top 5 reasons for that? Number 1 is a lack of clear business use case. We're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about how you can use technology such as ourselves and that business case more so. What's the business solution? What are we helping solve here? So picking a really good business use case is very important for being in that part of that 20% that are achieving tangible ROI from AI projects. Metrics and governance gaps. So we're going to add in a few metrics today that we think you should track when you're rolling out our technologies from an AI perspective. And then there's guardrails and governance around all of that good stuff as well. But adding in the metrics and tracking them is really important. We're going to talk about that. Data and integration complexity. In our world, how we solve that is once that data is brought into Salesforce and is stood up properly within Salesforce, then we can let our AI tools do the magic. So we're talking about, are the phone call transcripts coming in? Are the emails coming in? Are the chats, whether it's Agentforce or another technology? Are you bringing your chat transcripts in there? All your case data, in case you want us to run quality on your cases. So the data integration complexity, it's a big challenge for some of these AI projects. In our world, it's simplified once that data is brought into Salesforce. Weak adoption and change management. I connect this to number 2. You're tracking the metrics. So you're looking how to improve the performance, and we'll talk about that in more detail. But also, what are the issues, and how do I tweak the product to deal with any change, or we want to evolve our scorecards and how we assess people. We deal with all of that, and have been working on that quite heavily in the last 6 months, to be honest, with all the deployments we're rolling out. In terms of number 5, the last point, escalating costs with unrealistic expectations. Tokens is very much out there as a chargeable mechanism. How do you connect tokens back to real business outcomes? We do that in our licensing model. I won't dig too deep into our licensing model today. Probably not touch a huge amount. You can see it from our website, but our costs are very controlled and we're outcome based. So the amount of assessments, so we link our pricing on AI to the amount of assessments that you conduct with the AI models. So, very clear, controllable costs that you can track and determine, very important. And it has to be linked to business outcomes. So they're the top. Oh, yeah, great.
I wanted to jump in and ask. So we've got these 5 reasons, and I can definitely see that all of these are things I would expect. But 2 questions. One, where do you find people are often coming in the process? Are they sort of coming in with a call with you and saying like, hey, we just need to make this better, and lacking that sort of business case? Or do they have pretty specific goals? And are there any of these five that seem to be really plaguing people that you're seeing in terms of these rollouts and deployments?
Yeah, so in the terms of the first answer, yeah, they're coming to us around they need help building a business case. And I think what's actually happened in the last 6 months is that we've seen with some companies where they've hit their AI budget, consumption budget by the end of H1, and they're like, well, what's the return on that value? And that's creating the chat. It's more of a it's more of a broader AI challenge whereby people are using the GPT services and all those kind of things, and they're turning it on. They want everybody to use the tools to make themselves more efficient. But that's creating it. They're trying to connect that back to tangible ROI. So that's what's becoming more mature in the marketplace today. So they are coming to us saying, we need you to help us with a business case so we can sign off on this use case. And in terms of the second question, Mackenzie, just can you ask me that again?
I was kind of wondering, out of these five reasons, which one was sort of the big one? And maybe you sort of answered that together, but is there, other than that renewal of the, putting
Yeah,
funds towards AI development?
Yeah, I'd argue this applies again to broader AI projects, but the data and integration complexity. So we are specifically in our world, we're speaking to people whereby do they have we got the ability to access their chat transcripts? Do they have data cloud, for example, so we can do certain things there? Their phone transcripts might live outside. Turns out email cases predominantly are always in Salesforce, and they're a great starting point. And in quite a lot of companies, that's the heavy lifting. A lot of support tickets come in through email cases, so it's a great place to start. And then you're trying to get the other edge cases in there. So number three, data integration complexity. If you can stand it up very well in Salesforce, you've got a great chance of success with the project. To be honest, in our world,
Nice. So thanks for answering that.
no problem. So when we think about the business case, we got to think about the business solution, the business benefits, more so than the technical deep dive. So overall, this is an enterprise CX quality assurance business case. What are the key benefits that we're looking to help customers with? We're looking to help them increase their CX QA coverage. So typically, we're seeing, and we talk about 1 to 5%. We see a lot of 1%. So what the volume of, if they're doing 10,000 cases a week, how many of them are touching? Typically 1% for data sampling and then quality checking through the standard process of, and maybe they're using our core app, but it's like the standard way of manual assessments and human evaluations on that 1% sampling. And there's challenges with that, which I'm going to come to, but a big part of that use case, the business benefits, is we can help them increase that to 100%. And how we do that, there's actually nuances in that we've learned over time. The second big part is, how do you reduce the evaluator workload? There's a great use case out recently from IKEA whereby they reduced a lot of effort with AI, but that didn't mean they took those people out of the business. They retrained them into other areas, and they were able to grow revenues by something along the lines of 1.4 billion. So in some of these scenarios, you're helping take work away from people so they can do more high value work. So, but reducing that evaluator workload, we're also seeing that evaluator workload is landing on top of existing team leaders where that's kind of heavy work, that they have other things they'd have more value to do. So that's the second point. Third point, ensuring governance and compliance. Some of our clients, a lot of regulation compliance, how need to make sure how they're engaging with customers, that they're following the right processes, and how do you make sure you're tracking that if you're dealing with 150,000 calls a month? How are we making sure that we're not liable here, that we're following the rules that we need to follow? We can really help that, and that's connected to the coverage. So how do we ramp up our coverage to 100%? So and make sure we're following our compliance rules. So they're the top level benefits of the business case. And I talk about, CXQA coverage in an old world. So where this is the sampling rate we're talking about, and this is just a sample mix where, you got 20,000 emails per month, cases coming in, support cases per month, 10,000 calls, 5,000 chats. I'm sure every customer is different in their mix here. But the sampling is pretty much consistent across the board of what they're able to touch. So, and you're leaving that big volume of 95% plus across each of those interactions untouched, not scanned. So, you use the schedules to data sample different areas, but there's challenges. How you scale that is really hard. It's really hard.
So Neil, I'd be curious. Obviously, AI has rolled out so quickly, adoption's been so fast, but how recent was it that almost every call center, data center, client success team was only reaching that like 1 to 5%?
Oh yeah, I mean, some are still in some. What I do know is some customers do not have that in at all, the quality assurance process, so they have zero. Um, and the 5% we rarely see from that manual QA piece. So we rarely see the 5%. So it's normally within the 1 to 2%, especially the higher volumes you go up. So if somebody's 100,000 interactions a month with our customers, um, that means like you're looking to touch, you know, uh, 1,000 interactions and assess all of them. Uh, that's quite hard to achieve. So yeah, it's how you how can you scale beyond that? And these are the challenges that extend into that actually. So we're talking about the manual QA challenges as it is today. It's hard to scale, and you need more people to scale if you just want to keep it at a human level and review with human evaluators. How do you scale that up? It's incredibly hard, and if you do want to go to 100%, that's quite expensive. It's actually tedious work. So depending who you're speaking to, you could be dealing with a customer um, who could be taking 20 minutes to run an assessment on each of the calls. Some other customers could be 2 hours if to review a certain type of case. So, and it is quite tough work doing that consistently. So it's hard work to get that really accurate from a human perspective. And I think point number three, which is a big driver why people are looking at this more and more today, is that critical moments can slip through. So when you think about, let's just say we're in the 1% bracket and we've got the other 99% that we're not looking at. Um, okay, how do I know what's going on there? And the worst scenario is where you're brought into a management meeting and it's like, well, why did you not know about that issue that came out? Well, we data sample 1% and things will slip through. And maybe today with that's not going to wash. So you have to find a way of how do you drive up that scale? Okay, so when we think of the new world, and I like to think about it in terms of a mix, okay? And this is something that's really transpired from our deployments recently. So let's take 100, let's say, in terms of those emails, and let's just say we have 20,000 email cases coming in a month. If I ramp that from 2% up to 100% with auto QA, which basically means with auto QA, I'm going to provide scores out for all those interactions. So now I have 20,000 scores going out to the agents. So that creates a lot of secondary work. So there's something else that's coming out from the ROI and the findings in the reports is that in certain scenarios, AI is making your work more intensive. So, which people are, there's certain things, okay, I need help with a slide deck or I need help with a document or market research, fantastic, and it's helping me generate certain things. But in terms of projects such as CXQA, and you add in AI, the secondary work becomes more intensive. And what do I mean by that? That's elements such as creating coaching tasks. So now I've got, instead of 2,000, this scenario, 2,000 cases going out in the new world, I've got 20,000 cases being scored on emails. And I'm giving out all those. So now I've got more disputes coming back. I've got all those disputes coming back where they're saying, well, I don't agree with that score or that specific question. And now I've got all these learning tasks going up. So what we're seeing now is more of a balance. So we can get you there with 100% coverage, but you may want to say, do you know what, let's score in that email scenario. I've got like 20% between manual QA and auto QA, 20% being scored where people are receiving scores back. For the other 80%, they're going to use a feature that we have called auto flag. And what auto flag will do is go and look at all those other interactions and see where there's really poor scores or poor interactions and present it back for manual review from your QA team. So you got to remember, this is still very much a hybrid approach. So AI is there to complement uh, the human work. I think that's really important, and it's still very prevalent today with our technology. So, how do you bring that back? Identify red flags, present it back, and then let us look at what that problem is from a human perspective. And that way, that allows you, and your balance can be different. Like your chats down here are saying 98%. In that scenario, actually, AutoFlag is looking at 100% of the chats and it's finding 2% of challenges and it's presenting it back to a human evaluator. So for certain types of interactions, you may turn it on 100%. You might do auto QA 100% on refund cases. So we're seeing a mix, but we're also seeing in certain high volume scenarios, okay, don't create 100,000 scorecards, but scores go back to the agents. Maybe create 20% of them and then scan the other 80% for anything that might slip through the net. I want to make sure nothing slips through the net. And all of a sudden now I've got 100% coverage. So something we're seeing, and this also includes for people that don't have the QA scoring as part of their metric suite. You know, so if you think of CSAT scores, Net Promoter scores, average handling time, first call resolution, all those kind of good things, they're kind of set in stone. So we think about other QA metrics we can add in CX metrics we can add into the mix with the advent of AI. What are we seeing in real terms? So call center management teams, CX management teams want to understand how much is being evaluated by humans versus AI. They want to understand that coverage rate balance, let's call it that. So that's something that's coming out now as a metric. And then also inside those, well, from the humans, how many coaching tasks have been created? But, so below each of those buckets, there's kind of more like what activity is coming out from each so they can compare. The red flag rate, so if you're using auto flag, okay, and let's say you're using Agentforce to deal with your frontline support automation. How many of our Agentforce interactions are presenting red flags? Because last month it was 18%. What's it this month? Okay, it's 12%. We're seeing, okay, what's our goal for next month? So it's helping driving that governance, that change management, the adoption. So the red flag rate becomes a new metric. And then you have the QA scoring metric. Bring that part of, if you haven't already, into your key metrics for CX. And this is what we're seeing more and more now.
And then Neil, in terms of sort of like the main KPIs, I know you're covering those there in that last slide, but do you find there's certain KPIs that become like the golden egg that everyone's like, it's the red flag rate, we want that as low as possible, or is it the score itself? What are you kind of seeing teams do there?
Yeah, so red flag rate has become very prominent from an Agentforce perspective. So where you're doing that as an autonomous agent for frontline support, and you have several, you could be dealing with tens of thousands of interactions. Tracking, as I mentioned earlier, reducing that rate over time. So bringing that red flag rate down through that is really important. And then on the QA scoring rate, if you're thinking from an AI perspective, how we should be increasing that over. So if AI is covering a higher coverage rate now, we should, and we're at on an average of QA scoring rate within that division, we've got 72%. Well, with AI doing more volumes and providing more feedback to the agents, we should be seeing that go higher. So how do we get that from 72 to 80 to 85? So they're the key things we're seeing now, that people are being more, how would you say, stronger with QA scoring, pushing that more aggressively, and the red flag rate really pushing that down depending on what that's tracking. So we're helping our customers, as I mentioned today, with their ROI use case. This is very much, and you can use this in different ways. This is available publicly. I'll talk about that in a few minutes, but this is where you're taking your channel. So whatever that's inbound emails, whether that's phone calls, it could be cases. So it could be complex cases that take 2 hours to assess with a lower volume. So, but with this, just to give an example, you select your channel, your interactions, and I should add as well, you've got an add channel button there. So when you're using this tool, you can add in the different interactions. It's not just about, let's do one and rinse it through the report. Add in all your different types of interactions that you're looking, and some of them might be at 0 today, but add in all your interactions and see how you can improve that program and improve the coverage rates with tools such as ourselves. So in this scenario, I'm taking inbound emails. I'm saying 20,000 interactions a month. And then I got current state on the left, and then with product on the right. But let's auto QA scoring, let's call it that. Um, you know, Today we're saying we do 2% coverage. We spend an average of 30 minutes per evaluation, and that 2% equates into 400 evaluations a month. So that effort at the moment is 200 hours a month. But if we ramp up that coverage now, just I'm giving an example where I'm going to ramp up the coverage with AI, and it brings me to 20%, and then I might say, do you know what? I'm just going to add in auto flag for 80%. Another way of looking at the ROI is actually do like for like. So you might want to your business case. Some people are doing that as well. Look, I just want to do, the 2% that I'm doing today. I want to do the 2% on the right hand side, and I want to cover everything else with auto flag, for example. So that's another way of leveraging the use case to help you with that internal business case, and then you can ramp up that AI coverage later, if that suits. But in this scenario, we're doing two things. We're ramping up the AI coverage to 20%, and then we're putting a human review rate on that. So we talk about governance. We really like, so we have certain things in place, guardrails with the product. We like the review rate. So if Auto QA is running 4,000 scorecards now within this company, we want to do a spot check now on AI scoring. It's slightly, we're kind of reversing it a little bit, turning it on its head. But now we want a human review rate on what Auto QA is doing, which we think is good practice. We're allowing some time for that, but we're still achieving quite a significant time saving per month with the product by including those guardrails. Some other things we're seeing with guardrails is if the score is less than X, so if it's less than 70%, which is our standard, we want that to go for human review rate. And when it goes for human review, we then want the human to pass it on to the agent, and that may also factor into your calculations.
So Neil, I see 30 minutes average time per evaluation manual, 5 on the Leaptree side. Is that because they're already getting handed, essentially a full review, and then it's just the human checking it, human in the loop, sort of making sure it looks up to par?
Yeah, spot on. The 5% actually I might have went too high with. So it's all subjective.
Okay.
But what you might see, and then we also see why you might look at another type of, let's say it was a complaints queue with a lower volume, but a much higher. They could have a 2 hour, they could have a 1 hour evaluation time frame on the left hand side. So it is quite subjective. It's all relevant to how the customers approach it today versus how they see it in the future. And they may not see a human. We recommend a human review rate. That's why we include it within the calculator. And maybe that 5 minutes is too high, but yeah, it's just to provide as best real world simulation that we can.
Sounds excellent.
Yeah, and then when we bring it together, then we're looking at the ROI outcomes. So we talked about those 196.7 hours saved per month. What does that equate into per annum? But also I'm giving an extra QA coverage increase, and really important, remember that, auto flag can be, and I'll talk about that shortly, but auto flag can add into that coverage as well, which is important to bring into your use case and look at the estimated annual savings. Granted, you need to buy the technology to provide it, but this is your benefits realization, then you've got your cost to compare to that. And we've just taken one area, which was email cases. So yeah, and then you can get this, you can then you add in each of your interactions, and then you can download an ROI report, and then you can use this data as it fits for your internal business case. And the boosting with the coverage with your auto flag. So an element to bring in is in terms of, okay, for that other 80%, can I use that technology to go and scan for red flags? The other caveat is here, that might create another 2%, just to be really transparent. You can see the start manual evaluation down here. You might want to say, do you know what, auto flag them, and then I might have an option just to auto score as well. But in this scenario, we're saying manual, it's flagging where the issues are. I'm going to do a quick manual evaluation. It does speed it up also, auto flag, to be honest, for those other 80%, but there is some management involved there, but that's helping you. That's a great way to balance that 100% coverage. Will be the key point. Yeah, and just for everybody today on the call, it's just this is available on our website. You land to Leaptree AI, and you see the ROI calculator up there in the top right, And work away, feel free to use that tool. It helps us obviously working with our customers, so we'd like to share that on a public basis. And I do want to touch on briefly of how, again, into this business case. So, we're talking about tangible cost savings. So you compare the benefits realization, you compare that to the costs of the products such as ourselves, you put them together, you've got some nice tangible ROI, but then there's other kind of non-negotiables, in terms of, you could call them intangible benefits, because you can't, where's the cost realization here? But, you have to provide these compliance features, these compliance scenarios. So I'll talk about auto flagging, but using that in a compliance scenario whereby, on those phone calls, did they make sure to clarify with the customer X, Y, and Z? Did they really communicate these points to that customer? When they sent an email to confirm, did they state this exact language? So things like that, you can use AutoFlag to scan everything to find that. And when you see this is a compliance issue, possible compliance issue, you can use AutoFlag to do that as well. QA for Agentforce, I touched on that earlier on. But if you're looking for governance of your Agentforce frontline support deployments, we are independent. We live inside Salesforce, but we don't depend on Agentforce. And so you can use us as an independent governance tool for Agentforce. And Agentforce is only getting better with the recent acquisition of Fin. I can just see that frontline support automation is another great use case. So how we can complement that, I think, really helps our customer base. And then the third point, when you think about governance, I'll talk about, say, it could be a refund case. When you're looking at a case that has multiple channels, different threads, it could have a phone call that comes in with a complaint, for example, which may turn into a refund, and how that's managed through its whole case lifecycle. We can govern that and we can QA that process. So we're not just, a phone call came in and we ran QA on that phone call. We could be dealing with a multi-threaded case that has all those different types of interactions, and we can support that from a compliance governance perspective. So just food for thought there. There's a bit more to what we can provide in that world. And then we extend governance to think of our customer base that we serve is all inside Salesforce. And inside Salesforce, when you think about everything that's provided there with security, the controls, and all those elements, we live inside that model. So you have your governance controls in there, and we live inside that. That works really well. Obviously, then reporting centralized, you can access all the object data that we provide inside Salesforce for your scoring and so on, and join it up with your other metrics. But it all lends in well to that whole governance perspective. And just to touch on some additional benefits that will be coming in the future around this whole space. So we're working on things such as sentiment analysis, but think of it that could be from a case level. So back to that complaints case that the customer phoned in, you can see in the bottom, that arc at the bottom is that red line is the customer. So they came in with a complaint. And the agent in the blue line is how they're dealing with the customer through that whole case process. So it's not just a phone call and what was their sentiment. We're working on that where we can bring it through a whole case. And we think that's incredibly helpful for this project. So in terms of when you're talking about a business case, what additional benefits can you talk about? Sentiment analysis from a multi-channel perspective on a case level, conversational insights in the top right there, where we're talking about like what's trending at the moment. So all of a sudden we might see a spike in refunds this week. What's happening there? Let's drill in. What's going on? So we see this as a broader CX feature that we can provide, not just on scoring. And then I tie it back to learning. We think about recommended learning actions, which is what we provide today. But we want AI to get much more clever in this space and join that with customers' knowledge base and identify, okay, they didn't score well here. This is the knowledge base article, or this is the learning management action that they need to take, and how we can join that automatically with AI in the future. That's something we're really excited about. So it's just about helping customers describe additional benefits into the business case. We think this all helps.
I think a lot of that data that you can collect and catalog there and like tag, like you said, if there's more refunds or if it's more this, and then that can go to other teams or other divisions where it's kind of giving them a heads up of much ahead of time. So I think that's really valuable, really fascinating.
Yeah, see, we're looking at those interactions already as part of the AI by the 100% coverage. We're looking at those interactions. So let's mine that data, and we will take customers' categorizations. So customers will provide us with the categorizations, such as refunds, money back. We'll apply that when we're reviewing the case, and yeah, and then we'll surface that information up. So yeah, absolutely. I'm breaking it into, as you mentioned, breaking it into different departments possibly as well is very important.
I'm scared what my graph would look like for my sentiment when I I had a bag lost on an airline. I won't say which one, but I'd be very curious how my graph would look through this.
So on that point, so yes, this will be a feature you can turn on or off. So at the enterprise level, but yeah, so it's important that we look broader at what we can provide in the CX landscape as opposed to purely the scoring perspective. Um, yeah, and just to close before we move into Q&A, just one more thing I wanted to kind of join it back. This is a different report. It's from the product perspective, but I think this helps. Like you think of product owners internally within their customers, and what they're looking at, um, and from the left side to the right side, this is the AI value framework that provided by Bessemer Venture Partners. I find it incredibly powerful. A great picture tells in words, but on the left side is soft ROI. So I love the bit at the top there. Help salespeople sell a little better, and they flag that as the danger zone. So, the ROI is really soft over there, and even like advice, answers, suggestions. How tangible is that from an ROI? It's hard to be tangible ROI. You move over to the right hand side. We're very much in that blue box at the moment. So clear value, autonomous workflow completion, easy to justify ROI, clear business case. So even if you were to take that one screenshot and go, okay, how do we measure up the projects internally that we're reviewing? I think this is a fantastic snapshot. It's great that we're in that blue box, and how can we look at new workflows in the future to move ourselves up? But helping clients with that, I think, is our sweet spot today.
All right, Neil, let's get into some questions here if that suits you.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. This one came in the most recently, so we might be jumping in the timeline a bit. But Jorge asked, what do the human evaluators do with all that free time that AI has saved them? Will there be fewer evaluators? I like a slightly controversial question.
Very good. Okay, so what I made a point earlier on of what IKEA have done, which is reskill the workforce, and they've been able to generate higher revenues through that. It's all very much dependent on customers themselves. I can only talk to what we see. So we also see a balance. We see in terms of team leaders across businesses that have very large organizations, and they're doing QA as part of their work. So guess what? If you can take them away from doing the evaluation and more into coaching their agents, is that going to help the value? Is that going to help you retain? We see that quite a lot in what we'd call a hybrid mode of a team leader, where they're doing, and they may be QAing somebody else's team, keep it as non-biased as possible, but that's freeing up their time to do more high-value work within the call center. In other scenarios, you may see an outsourced element of QA teams, which have a cost associated with that, and that contract might expire over time, for example. So they're the situations we're seeing, and with the third situation being back to the IKEA story, which is reskill and move them into other more high value roles. So yeah, they're the three things we're seeing in practical terms.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for answering that. You're bringing up costs of this, and we have a question in the queue. Where do companies usually underestimate the cost of manual QA?
Great. Okay, in two places there. So First is actually the time spent on the actual QA work. So I've been working with people going through the calculator, and they put in, say, 20 minutes per evaluation, and they say, yeah, well, they typically have the coverage rates spot on, so we do 1.25%, and they run that through, but they're finding the timing is something different, that it's typically more extreme than they realize. I mentioned earlier on that, yeah, we one client to say, look, it takes us 2 hours to review a case, a lot of detail, a lot of questions, and spot on. But some other people they underestimate what's involved. And the second part of that is the secondary work they underestimate. So all of a sudden they're dealing with a score that's got 34%. They got to set up a meeting. They got to set up coaching tasks. It's all connected to the QA process. So how you measure that out is really important. That's what people can underestimate is the primary work of the actual evaluation, and then the secondary work that follows on from that, whether that's learning, management, dispute management, whatever that might be.
Okay, perfect. So we have a few questions here, kind of digging into the percentages of coverage, accuracy, things like that. First, Paul has asked, the 1 to 5% of coverage is on the interactions handled by the human workforce or the AI agents included?
Okay, I maybe should have been clear on that earlier on. So when I was talking about the 1 to 5%, and then I showed then a chart with the 2%, that was all human QA as it is today for those who have not implemented AI. And AI is helping you get from that, above 5%, and the tactics you use to get above 5%. So for clarity, that 1 to 5% was the human QA rate.
Okay, and then actually same person asking, how do you ensure the auto QA evaluation is 100% accurate? What's your confidence level?
Super. We have an AI trial process. So we engage with customers, whether that's in their trial data, say take a sandbox, we engage in that on, say, a 15-day period. They stand up, whether that's test data, it has to be relevant to the business. And they want to understand how accurate, back to that question, how accurate can you be? And we prove through that process how accurate we can be. We set up the AI models, we set up the scorecard types, we pointed to their data, their test data, whatever that might be. And then we run the scorecards through the AI model, and then we show them the results. Practical term, what you're looking for is 90% plus accuracy. Now, what we are, so basically, nice and simple, we've got 10 questions in an assessment, and 9 out of 10 are 100% accurate. But also what we do is we generate the comments, because in some scenarios with our customers doing human QA, they only put comments in, for example, if they need to. So if it's driven in the process. So, but we generate comments through our AI engine as well. And what we're finding is that customers really like the accuracy of those AI comments. And also, we talk about 90% or higher. You typically find that we can adjust. We have a way of tweaking the model. So we do this shadow mode. So we'll say, here's what a human evaluator scored. Here's what our AI engine scored. Here's the generative comments that we presented for each question. And then we want to tweak. There's a reason why question number 10 was that. There's a reason why we're at 90% accuracy. So we can tweak the model, and then we can run the scorecards again to refine that to get that to the 100%. But that's how we get confidence levels with our customers.
Very nice, impressive. Okay, I had a question here. How do you decide which interactions still need a human review?
Okay. There's a few options here. So I mentioned, you look at the ROI calculator, and we couldn't put every edge case in there, but that's a standard mode of a spot check. So do you know what? We're going to do 20% with auto QA, and we're going to do a 1% review on that. So 1 in 100, we're going to look at that QA is assessed, and we're going to just double check the scoring. And you got to realize that we have brought people through this shadow mode that I mentioned earlier on to get to their confidence level for that one process and get them live. And then we still think they should do a spot check. So that's kind of the standard mode. Then there's other scenarios that we talk about, which are some of our customers will say, if it's less than a certain score, we want that to go to human review. So that makes the human review percentage a bit more dynamic, but it's a very nice way of dealing with, how do I deal with a difficult agent? I'm going to send it to the human review. They're going to spot check that and then deal with the agent and deal with them face to face or whatever that might be. But that's a human
scenario there. And then the other piece in terms of what you're looking there for human review, you think of auto flags and looking for red flags, and that's creating a human review element. So we got 20% done with auto QA. I got the other percent going out looking for red flags, but those red flags by default create a manual human review. So they're the three ways.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, we have a skeptic out here, Neil. They're asking, is it really realistic to evaluate 100% of interactions?
So yes, but I'd look at this. It's more nuanced, as I mentioned earlier on. So yes, and it's connected to volumes. So let's say you've got 10,000 interactions a month between emails, phone calls, and whatever that might be, chat. So is the organization, it's all dependent on the organization. Are they happy to have 10,000 score? You got to realize what the outcome is. Are they happy to have 10,000 scorecards issued out every month to 200 agents, for example? If they're happy with that, we can do it, and we can help them do it, and we're very confident of that. I would argue that what we see now from the delivery that we've gone through with quite a few customers is that the balance between using auto flag and auto QA, it's unique to what we provide, but I think that's really important. So that's 80-20 rule. Why not have 20% of that 10,000 being dealt with auto QA and give them scores? Because we got to remember the secondary work there. And on the 80%, use auto flag to scan and present red flags back. And I think that creates a really nice balance. And my last point on that is it all depends on each process. So you might have a compliance process and you have to scan 100% and just find red flags. So it's nuanced, but yes is the short answer, but there's more to it. There's quite a bit of detail to it of what the customer is looking to achieve. Yeah.
Awesome. So we do have a couple other questions, but I think they're maybe better to take offline. You might get nitty gritty granular. So what I'm going to do, Neil, is ask you if there's any final things you want to leave with the audience here in terms of just key takeaways, or if they do want to learn more, get in touch, anything of that nature. Where would you point them? What would you suggest?
Yeah, I think that confidence question at the start of the Q&A is a great point. It's a great point not to be overlooked, because again, there's a lot of false promises. Like AI is in a broader context is providing a lot of value, but back to the tangible ROI. So that's what this is all about today. How can we? You got to build the trust first before we say, can this really provide my business case? How do I know if I present this to the senior leadership that this will actually do the job? So we're mitigating that. That's why we're talking about we can provide people with AI trials. They can actually use it with our trial data, I should mention as well. So if they want to do it that way, but confidence is really important, trust, getting that correct before you present any business case. And we are happy to help with that. That's very important.
Perfect. And any suggestions about using the ROI calculator if people are using that tool that's linked in the Docs tab?
Yeah, one thing it doesn't deal with is auto flag. So just bear that in mind, that you'll just, in terms of your coverage rates, what do you want to achieve with auto QA? You do not have to dial auto QA up to 100%. It may help your business case better, so you can, but you also have that option with auto flag to cover the delta to get you to 100%. So that's one thing just to be aware of with the calculator.
Perfect. All right, with that, Neil, I think I'm going to let you go. So thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Always enjoy learning from you and being able to pick your brain with these questions. So thanks for taking the time.
No problem, Mackenzie. Thanks for hosting.
Absolutely, of course. Alrighty, Neil, appreciate it. And everyone out there in the audience, again, thanks for your great questions. Glad we could cover quite a few of them. As I mentioned, we're going to hand off anything that went in unanswered or slipped in last minute here to Neil and his team. I do want to bring up that we're going to have a survey popping up in the right-hand side of the console there where your chat docs Q&A have been. So feel free to fill that in. It's just kind of a pulse check for us here at Smart Brief. Beyond that, I am going to be giving away our prize. Again, we have a $250 Amazon gift card up for grabs. And our lucky winner today is Teresa Brack from Texas. So Teresa, congratulations. We're going to reach out by email, let you know how you can claim that. And aside from that, I just want to give one round of thanks here. Again, thanks to Leaftree for making today possible. Thanks to Neil for being here, taking time to share with us. And of course, thanks to all of you in the audience for being here, taking time out of your busy schedules, being inquisitive, being interactive. Hopefully you're leaving with some great things to think about, some new knowledge that you maybe want to be able to take into your organization with your teams and make great use of it. If you want to check out any other webinars, events.smartbrief.com is the place, or you can check out the QR code up on the screen. Other than that, we've done it, folks. So I'm wishing you all an absolutely fantastic rest of your days. Take care.